The attack is against the image and likeness of God himself as incarnated in the human body. And so, of course, the attack is against the human body. Of course, that's the scandal, is that the human body possesses a miracle and a mystery about existence in the universe that nothing else possesses. And so what are the dark forces in the universe going to attack? They have to attack that. And everything is arrayed to attack that and the things that, so what do? We get rid of the idea that anything is taboo. We get rid of the idea that anything is sacred. I'm going to remind you, in an earlier podcast, I think I mentioned, the word obscene is theatrical. It means we do not put on stage anything that is sacred. So you don't see, in Shakespeare, you'll never see a marriage, and you'll never see the conjugal act. You'll hear it, you'll hear a reference to it, but it will not be on stage because that is taboo. And taboo by the way, means sacred, and it means that which cannot be touched. It is off limits. And so what has modern society done but denigrated every single human relationship that revolves around the sacred?
And I love how you said on set, on screen.
Yeah. Obscene.
Like,
yeah.
But when you think about it, right, all this stuff's on our screens.
Oh, yeah.
The desecration of sex
is now the norm.
Right.
Feminism has tried to convince women that the only way to command their own bodies is to treat their bodies the way men treat their bodies.
Yeah.
And I would like to point out to everybody that there's a fundamental difference between men's bodies and women's bodies. Everything that is essential to being female is hidden from the human eye. The gods formed it that way for a purpose. Everything about a man is on the outside.
Right.
I joke about this.
Right.
I can bump my testicles into a bookcase.
Sure. Ouch.
Yeah. But a man's body, that's why we have always been comfortable with depicting the male nude as if it's no big deal. Because it's not mysterious. It's not beautiful. It's not sacred the way a woman's body is. And I know that sounds old-fashioned, but I absolutely believe it.
Yeah, and I mean, just think about it too. Like, anywhere we go, like you go to the gym, and it's just like it's almost like you're going to. It's like softcore porn, just going to the gym, just with what women are wearing. Yeah. It's like the tightest clothes. Shorts are now just basically thongs, and like the shortest, the least covering you can, right? And that's what's being influenced with all the fitness influencers. And I think that's why we wanted to talk about this today, right? Because this OnlyFans models, I think, OnlyFans is trying to capture the influence of is trying to influence, I think, young people. I think young men that, hey, this is cool. This is a way that you can. And sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself, but I have just some statistics. So the platform itself boasts over 220 million users, 2 million creators. And something that jumped out was OnlyFans saw a 75% increase in new users in just 1 month during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like people were isolated, right? They couldn't go outside. They couldn't date physically because of these stupid lockdowns. So then they went to OnlyFans. And I think OnlyFans, in a way, has been marketed to treat loneliness, but that's why I call it Lonely Fans, because it's not treating loneliness. I think it's it's increasing loneliness, because at the end of the day, right, it's a transaction. You're transacting your time, your attention, your money to a woman or to a man, if there's OnlyFans men, right? Yeah. But it's a transaction. It's not actual connection. You know, there's the money there, there's the attention, the power, right. But it's not true connection. It's not truly going to solve any loneliness. It's just going to isolate you more, right? And I
Well,
talk about this with, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
no, I would just interrupt that by saying that it's puzzling to a lot of Christians that in the Catholic faith, the use of prophylactics is barred from the conjugal act.
What's
And
hard?
the use of prophylactics as a birth control device.
Oh, okay.
You would
Gotcha.
you would think that that would be the safest and the most sort of humane way to do it, because you're not changing the physiology of a woman's body with chemicals in order to prevent conception, right?
Gotcha.
You're just blocking issue.
Gotcha.
Issue gets to happen, but it's not going to go into the womb, and you're not going to have the completion of the procreative act. And I didn't understand it for a long time myself. And then I had it explained to me by a very good priest who said, you realize that when you use a prophylactic, you're not actually touching your partner. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm just, and so I've made a joke out of that with my younger students when I say, this is why I believe that hookup culture and OnlyFans and porn doesn't work, is because at the end of the day, what you're actually tacitly saying to yourself is, hey, do you want to just go back to my place and rub stuff? Well, why do I need somebody else for that?
Right.
And so now you're pretending that two consenting adults can transact with each other to use each other.
Yeah.
And somehow you're going to be okay with that. And I'm going to remind everybody of what Saint Pope John Paul the Great said. The opposite of love is not hate. It is use. So the whole porn culture is to convince us that the only way that we can, in the most intimate way in the world, interact with each other is to use each other. That's what we have to buy into. And at the end of the day, if men and women both think about this for 5 minutes,
right,
they have to reject it if they have any respect for themselves at all. But what we've also done in this culture is we've attacked the idea that there is any such thing as respect. And so conversations like this sometimes can veer off into language where, oh, those two guys are just a couple of Puritans who are just out of sync with culture. And
I've got another word for you that I've been called, which is, I just laugh every time. Simp.
Yeah.
Simp, yeah. Normie. Like, what? Okay, cool. Every time someone says that, I'm just like, you have no maturity whatsoever on this subject.
The other
and
thing
you will find out at some point, and it's really going to suck.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I wear these rings, all right, this ring specifically here, is that the tradition of the marriage band is to let everyone know publicly that I am not available.
Right.
That particular portion of my humanity is reserved for one person and one person only.
Right.
And I'm telling you, this gives me a kind of confidence that I don't think I would have if I didn't have it.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder to me. And I feel it, and I play with it, and it's on my hand when I bartend. It's on my hand when I teach at the university. It's on my hand when I go to the grocery store. And it is my shield.
That's amazing.
It's my superpower.
Yeah, it makes me think about, and for the audience, people hopping on, thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate everybody's attention and engagement here. Yeah, like I was married for 5 years, went through divorce. I could share the same sentiments, man. I felt like I was an elevated human being wearing that ring. And not a day goes by where, I feel that deeply, that sense of loss. And I will tell the audience, a big part of that was my relationship with porn and not being honest about it. It really caused terrible, terrible destruction to my marriage and to what was a very promising, loving relationship. Irrevocable damage.
Which is not to say, I firmly believe that we live in a fallen world.
Right.
And I do not judge people for their failures, for their frailties, for their attempts to do the really great thing, and it's not working out. I don't like the language that people often use to describe, people need to own what they do.
Sure.
And they need to own their own parts in all this, because that's part of human agency too.
Exactly.
But I don't want the audience to misunderstand me. I am not some moralistic dude that is walking around judging other people because they didn't do this or didn't do that. I'm fully cognizant of my weaknesses and of my failures.
Right.
But at the same time, my greatest foundation is this. I say this about my marriage, in the toughest times in my marriage, and I don't remember when I first did it with myself, but in the toughest times that I ever had, at one point it occurred to me simply to say to myself, oh, so this is what I meant when I said I do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what I'm doing today, because you can't predict it, right?
Yeah.
You bring your weaknesses to your relationships for sure. But you have to be open to the way that God reveals to you how he's going to offer you these graces that are going to enter your life, that are going to counterbalance those weaknesses.
Yeah, well said.
And obviously my bride is the biggest one, but then my kids too. Like at the end of the day, when I am tempted, I also have to think about my kids and my obligation to them.
Yeah.
As a father and as a husband, and by the way, to me, this is the order of it: husband first, father second, friend third, professional fourth.
Right.
But I do try to remind myself. I don't do it perfectly, for sure. I'm a sinner, just like the rest of you guys. But I have seen these graces that have been offered into my life as aids and tools that are available to me. They're freely available to me at any moment of the day when I'm feeling my weakness.
Right.
To just remind myself, I say to people, don't forget that every person that you meet is a way for God to reveal how he loves you that you can't know unless you see them. But at the same time, so are you to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's a great inspiring humility.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people need to hear, that struggle with this, with porn, or with temptation, with sin, to be honest, right? Is that, like you just said, when we do that, it's kind of a two-way thing, right? To where there's people in our lives that want to love us, that God's going to work through, that it's beautiful. But then in our own life as well, we're not showing up to the table fully if we're living in this separate shadow life, to where we're isolating ourselves. For me with porn, it just felt like it was so sad. I felt so depleted. I felt so numb.
Well,
Void is a really good. Yeah.
There's a reason. On the one hand, porn is so ubiquitous and so public, and on the other hand, everybody does it in secret.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, with a few exceptions. So why does it have to be secreted away?
Right.
And
why? Like, let's dig into that.
I can as you so eloquently talked about it, like and then you find yourself in this weird sort of crux of balancing these two sides and trying to convince yourself that you could command both.
Yeah, I tell this story. It was like one of the last. It was a relapse I had after like 2 years of sobriety when I was married, and it was in 2021 was when I initially had the idea to podcast about being porn free and spread my experience, talk about it with other people, because I was seeing how much it was helping me in my life. And in that time, I think that was about 3 years into my 5-year marriage, where I hit a rock bottom moment, but then I went to therapy, to group, Bible study, was doing all the right things. And then we moved from Denver to Colorado Springs, which was like an hour and a half. So I moved myself away from all these positive things that were in my life. And we got a house and everything was busy for a bit. But then once it died down and I didn't have those resources or those things in my life, the whatever the stresses were that were coming down upon me, I went to the old way to medicate it, which was going to porn. But this moment that happened was I was like, I think like almost 2 years sober, doing really well. I created my Substack, Porn Free Millennial, and my podcast, Porn Free Millennial. And then it was like a week later, I relapsed bad. And I remember I know, right? It always happens. It's like you get so overconfident. I say, you get cocky, no pun intended. But I relapsed, I failed, right? And I remember telling myself, I'm going to take this to the grave. I'm never going to talk about it with my wife. She doesn't know. No one needs to know. I know God knows and God's mad, but I'm never going to tell her about it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remembered it was biblical. I'm telling you, Dr. Borse, it was biblical. A tree, there was a giant windstorm, like all the fences, it was a giant tree broke in half and it almost hit our house. So the next day after I relapsed, I woke up and I think I had COVID too. Like I've had COVID twice, and both were connected to really bad relapses and really bad depressive. It was the worst combination. But I had COVID. This giant oak tree, broke, or cottonwood, sorry, broke, almost hit our house. So I had to deal with that. But I used that as an excuse not to talk about my relapse, right? Because I'm like, I can't tell her right now. I mean, heck, like she's stressed with work. I'm busy. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about it. So then, days turn into weeks turns into months. And then by the time it comes out, it's incredibly devastating and hurtful. Right. Yeah. So I just bring that up just to kind of add to what you were talking about is, I think like with any kind of sin really, or things where we miss the mark. Right. We have like some choices that we have to make. And I think we should make the next right choice, the next best choice. But oftentimes, I think with me, at least with my development, I didn't make the right choice. I'd make like the next wrong choice because it's like, well, I already relapsed, so I might as well go back to it again because it feels good and I need that right now. I just need things to be easy. I don't need things to be hard. I can't have this hard conversation with my wife right now. I just can't.
Yeah, but all I would add is
all the excuses.
Well, not just that. One, when you're busy, the monster doesn't rear his head until you've gotten things all settled out and you're now on a trajectory of success. That's when the monster comes back out. Right. And secondly, it feels good until it absolutely doesn't feel good, which is immediately.
Yeah.
Every time.
Every time. It's like, it would be directly linked to the orgasm, would be at the plummeting of every positive emotion or every emotion that was I felt would just be, it'd like go off a cliff and you would just have this like hole in your chest.
Yeah, I suspect that John Keats suffered from something similar because in Ode on a Grecian Urn, he complains that human breathing passion leaves a heart high, sorrowful, and cloyed, a parching, a burning forehead, and a parching tongue. So he prefers the beauty that is only in poetry, not physical beauty, because that's the great danger of physical love. And yet, this is what we were talking about. This is why that is reserved. That's the Catholic word for it. It's reserved. It is reserved for the married state. And it is not public. It is taboo. I mean, taboo in the sense of sacred. And it is reserved because it is, as the Italians would say, it is molto pericoloso. It is ground zero. It is ground zero in the foundation of all good order. And so, of course, that has to be the thing that is going to be attacked. And so males are going to be feminized and women are going to be erased, ultimately.
Yeah, okay. That was something I was talking to my girlfriend about. It just seems like culture is trying to erase femininity in women. Like
I don't mean femininity. We've gone to the next step. I mean females.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is,